Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I'm a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too because you're watching this type of content. The name of this channel is Holistic Manifesting because I believe it takes a whole body, whole mind, and whole being experience in order to manifest these amazing lives that we're choosing to have, right? What I'm discussing today is anger, right? A-N-G-E-R, anger. And the reason why is because I don't really think I've ever broached this topic. And all the times that I was dipping in and out over the past few years, making a few videos here and there, I've never broached the topic of anger. And one of the biggest reasons I think it was because it was something that was a pain point for me in my life, right? And I've always wanted to run away from anything related to anger. So I even got so far because I used to be so angry all the time when I was much younger. I got so far as just acting like nothing ever bothered me in front of my daughters, never showing any glimpse of anger, never showing any frustration, because I was so pinned down by the fact that I don't want to be like my old self, right? And so, let's talk about that for a second, because I come from a very, what is it called? Emotional. I'll say that. I come from a very emotional background, right? I can remember being in my teens, being a tween, being a kid, what I could remember under 10 years old. And even as an adult in my 20s often, if something upset me, that was the end of the day. That was the end of everything. Everything was over. I had to feel vindicated in my anger, or I was done, with the person, with the place, with the thing. I don't care what it was. If there was some anger there that I didn't get to express, or that I felt like was justified, or anything, or my reaction, if I felt the reaction was warranted, that used to be, it was definitely my thing. And I was so ashamed of that aspect of who I was, because I would go places and people would be like, you get angry? You act like that? You do this? And they never could see it coming. And I was just thinking to myself one time when I was at work and I was telling someone about something that happened to me. This was a long time ago. And she was just like, I would never see that in you. And it really gave me the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of energy. And I did not want to be a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Everything's chill until you do one thing and then it's like hellfire, right? And so this was kind of like my trademark with a lot of people, places, and things, especially people that knew me personally. Because in public or around, I never showed that. It's definitely, if it was an immediate family member, they saw all of it. If you knew me personally, you saw all of it. And so that's what a lot of people are doing. But this is the thing. Now that I am past those points of even you can't really just bother me, right? You might mess with my head a little bit, but I'm gonna just go listen to something and then get back right. But even in those moments where I think about that, I realized that there was so much shame attached to it for myself. Shameful that I would act like that. Shameful that, that I would be so reactionary and not be able to control my temper, And those things, it's just oh my God, I was in my 20s and I did that. And so that part I feel like it made me stay completely away from the subject. And it also made me never validate justified anger, right? Because what happens is when you get into the spiritual world, and I always say the woo-woo world, right? You start, and it's not really woo-woo. You just start believing that, hey man, we got some non-tangible control over this thing that's happening. And maybe we need to tap into a bigger aspect of who we are. Then maybe we can create the lives that we want to live, right? So when you get into that space, you start to notice really quickly that being aggravated, frustrated, angry, or having a problem with something is the other way. Everybody's going to tell you gratitude, be happy. And so a lot of times I've heard in the past few years, they call it toxic positivity, right? So not even so much as that positivity is toxic, because I do feel like there's a lot of situations and circumstances and environments to where you can easily just turn it off. They're peeing you off, especially driving. That's one thing. It's they're pissing you off on the road. You can turn that off. Your children said something smart back to you. You can turn that off. There's so many things that is not justified anger. It's not even funny, right? But your frustration, it's fine. Life is life, and you are dealing with the vicissitudes of life, right? But another thing is that I don't like the idea of people feeling like if they have a negative day or a negative moment or a fit of anger or a fit of negative energy, that they should somehow pretend like it's not there, or they should somehow be ashamed of themselves for feeling the feelings in the first place, right? Because that is an area that I'm working my way out of. Because I'm like, you know what? I ain't Mary Poppins. I can get angry about things, but my anger today looks very different than what it looked when I was younger, right? First of all, I think you don't have no energy after 40 to just get all in a hoopla. But it was way before that when this thing came down. I didn't want my daughters to see me act like that, because I felt like if they saw me, then they would repeat it. And I have one that has a bit of a temper. And I'm going to tell you, I have not seen her have a tantrum in at least 2 to 3 years or something like that, like overreact about something. And I'm just like, and it's mostly because she doesn't see it. Like if you grew up in a household where you're seeing and adults act out, get angry, all this kind of stuff, you tend to think that it is an okay way to express anger, and you just repeat it. So what my biggest thing is that in my household, I knew that was the case. And it's not about dish and blame the people that you know. It's just knowing that whether we are personal or not, the fact of life is, as a sociologist, I know you are socialized around people, you will pick up their habits and identities. It's just what it is. When people act like they're self-made, I'm like, not possible. Who were you around? Who are your influences? Who raised you? What's your primary group? What's your secondary group? All that stuff is what makes people. You come here as a pretty much blank slate in so many ways. And so I recognize this. And so what happened with me is that, let me take this into my own hands and say, I don't want children that are angry. I don't want children that are throwing things. I don't want children that's fussing and fighting. I don't want a household like that. So that for me, that looked like subduing myself a lot. And so now that I've gotten past the point where that's even remotely the automatic reaction for me to do and be in places, I really, really focus on using my anger in the right ways, right? So like about a month ago, I would say a month, and I think it was about a month, my daughters did something ridiculous. When you just be like, I thought I knew my children. Why would you do that? No, I don't know. I'm never one of those parents that's like, I thought I knew everything they did. I know I don't. But some of the things still throw you off, right? It involves fighting over a teddy bear of some sort. And I'm not going to tell you what happened to the bear. I was so disappointed in the reaction, because it's like, dude, you're almost 17. What's happening? Like, but I understand what it's like to have a sibling that's next to you all day, every day. But I was so disappointed, and I felt like my words, because I have these kind of conversations with my daughters, and I'm like, you know what? Let's be honest. That didn't make any sense. And so everything sort of comes off like this level-headed lecture. They don't have a reason to fear me to a large degree, right? They know I'm feisty, but they know that I don't like anger and expressing it in ways that are just detrimental. So I think they manipulate that. So when that incident happened, I'm like, I have righteous anger about this nonsense, because to me, it's over the top, right? And so I got the voice. I went in. I have not yelled. I have not showed that amount of displeasure in such a long time. And they were like, and let me tell you, at first I was like, shouldn't I feel bad? Like, I showed anger. Like, I told him, and I said, this is ridiculous. You need to be ashamed. I did the whole 9. And I was like, normally, like in my mindset, I'd walk away and feel like, oh, you're such an awful parent. Look how angry you were. Look, anger, because that word was like an albatross around my neck. Because I was like, you can't show anger. You can't show any anger. Especially with family, close members, they act like, especially if you have family members and they ever picked on you or did something like that, they use these things to manipulate you. And so you think about it, you just like, anger is like the worst aspect thing that you could ever have. And it's like your problem. You got that problem. And I walked away from that incident with my daughters sharing that information like the way that I did. And I felt good. When I tell you, it felt justified and righteous. And when I tell you, them things went in there and cleaned their rooms. They cleaned the bathroom. They went in there and did the dishes. Children need to know that they don't know what's going to happen next sometimes, right? And so that is even what I think about people in society, people you connect with on a regular basis. Nobody should be able to see you as a doormat. What your anger looks like should be, we're going to settle this and we're going to get it right. It should be okay for you to say, guess what? I'm very angry right now. And because I'm so angry, I need to take a beat. And so I can come back and be a real person, and I can come back and share stuff without dumping things on you and without it going too far, right? And so we got to get to the place where we're able to discuss our anger as an emotion and leave it as that and just move on and be okay with it. So many times we're trying to meditate anger away. So many times we're trying to, and we know that if we have an issue with anger, that stays and lingers, because some people do have chronic anger. Like they wake up feeling angry, they go to sleep feeling angry, and depending on what you're going through in your life, you may be experiencing that. Well, I mean, just like a few months ago, I was in a situation to where my life was really crappy, and it wasn't like fully crappy. My daily task and what I had to do was just really crappy. It was get up at 6 in the morning. It was get on the road by 6:55. It was be in traffic for an hour and 15 minutes. It was drop off one kid, then drop off the other, then drive for 20 more minutes so I can get to some place to work where it doesn't even matter whether I sit at a desk or not. And then I would think about it all the way about going home, and the amount of stress and pressure and anger that it developed over time. Like I really just was so frustrated in life. But this is the thing, throughout that entire process, we're going through that, and the level of anger that I had, the biggest methods that I have to deal with it was like it, because the situation at the time, I couldn't change it immediately. I should have changed it immediately in hindsight, but in my mind, I couldn't change it immediately. I thought I was doing something that was good, but I really wasn't, because, nonetheless. And so I was doing this thing, and I was just thinking, like, through this whole time, I never let my anger about it get the complete best of me. So I was meditating it away. I was driving, a different route so that I didn't have to encounter the same roads and stuff that I was dealing with. I was finding podcasts and audiobooks and all that, blah, blah, blah. I was ignoring my children falling asleep on the ride there and ride back. Like I was blocking everything out to get that mission done that I thought was so important, right? But this is the thing about that kind of stuff. It gave me an opportunity to really see the extent of how I can maneuver with anger, with deep anger, and still not lose control, and still not lose myself in the whole process. So every day I was like, I have this righteous anger about this, and I'm done with that. Okay, what do you want to eat for breakfast? What do y'all want for lunch? What do you want for dinner? But it's like, don't bring up that thing, because I have righteous anger about it, and it's there, and I'm not willing to hide it anymore, right? And I think that's the only way for us to process our emotions. If we walk around all the time and act like it's so awful to feel anger, it's so awful to be frustrated, it's so awful, then we never actually see what's underneath that feeling, right? So the feelings that I had when I was in my 20s, that came from my teens, that came from, just growing up, that anger, I had to go dig into it, right? I went to anger management, and it was forced on me, but I'm so happy that I went. I mean, I went to, and it was through divorce court, whatever. And so I went through so much, different therapists. I went through all these things, and it's like I figured out things. And because of the anger and just allowing it to be, I think that if I was allowed to be angry and not shamed for it, and I was allowed to say, well, what do you really, if someone was around me that was emotionally intelligent, and I'm not saying that people weren't, but there's only such a level that people can be. But if there was somebody, a therapist, a teacher, anybody, a person in your family that would step in and say, it's not bad that you're angry. What you're angry about is probably okay. What you need to understand is why your reaction to the anger is so poorly, and you need to pull back the layers and figure out where that anger is coming from in the first place. I could have skipped a lot of levels. A lot of levels when it came to that aspect of who I was, right? Because everywhere I went, it was shamed. And so there are a lot of things that we do in society, that we do in our lives, that don't have anything to do with anger, that may or may not be that, and we get shamed for it. And the fact that we're shamed for it, we don't usually confront it. But let me tell you, I look anger in the eye so easily these days, and I'm like, you don't have control over me. I'm good. You know what I mean? But if I'm angry about something, I'm going to show righteous and justified anger, and I'm going to tell you exactly what needs to be said, and I'm going to walk away. If I don't think I can do it and keep my cool, I'm going to walk away, right? But when I do it and I think I can keep my cool, then I'm going to come and tell you exactly what it is, or I'm going to go fix that thing, or I'm going to go address that thing. And so we just have to keep in mind that if we're ignoring the idea that anger can be good, then we can never use it for good. Then we always use it as a tool to shame ourselves. We use it as a tool, like a weapon. We weaponize our anger against other people. We weaponize our anger against ourselves and our children, all that kind of stuff. But if we realize that anger is a valid emotion, right? you're standing on a corner and somebody tries to kidnap your child, and you're angry. Yeah, it's like, oh, you shouldn't be angry about that. No, that anger is justified. So there are some that everybody agree on, but what we all can probably agree on is that our reactions to that feeling, we have to minimize them. We have to be able to control ourselves, and we have to be willing to keep our cool, because this is the thing. If we really want to fix those negative things or those environments or those people, places, whatever in our lives that are bringing about this level of anger or that feeling that we have, or something unresolved or some trauma or whatever it is, right? I can think of things from like childhood. Once I told one of my sisters, the oldest sister, something negative or whatever, but I was like 15 at the time, and her response was, it was just punch me in my face. Now, this is the thing. A lot of people are like, that's so awful, right? But depends on where you grew up and what the people were around you. I can think about that situation on the wrong day, and I'm maybe almost 30 years past that, right? And it still will pique a tinge of anger, because I'm like, who do people think they are that they can put hands on somebody? Because that's never my thing. I don't touch folks. Who do you think you are that you can lay hands on people? So I really, and so you can think about things that give you anger from childhood and all that, but the best way that you can deal with that kind of stuff is to sit down with someone and peel back the layers as to why you're so angry in the first place, as to why it takes something to happen for you to go from 0 to 60 and you don't have any space in between, right? Anyway, but don't get rid of your anger. It's an indicator. It's a huge indicator in your life when something is awry. Either your reaction to it is awry, or either somebody's inflicting upon you is awry, right? So we just want to make sure that we understand where it's coming from, how to resolve it, how to pull back the layers, and then how not to just get rid of it altogether, because you need your anger. This is the same way you need your sadness, you need your happiness, you need your joy, you need all of that stuff, because it's an indicator about what's happening in your life. And how can you be a master manifester if you're not in full charge of all the aspects of your emotions and who you are in this life? Anyway, I hope you all are having a wonderful, wonderful day. And don't mind this little funny looking bun I got on my head. I really need to get into washing my hair. So I pulled it up before I get to it. And you're right, this is one of the longest videos I've made in a while. But it's a good topic, because I think sometimes when people are in spiritual worlds, people really shame them for feeling any negative feeling. And that's just not the case. It's your reaction. It's how are you processing that anger? What are you doing with it? What does it mean to you? How are you dissecting it? What are you using it for? Right? Because anger has pushed me to do some amazing things in life, right? I've been angry about being primarily accountable for my daughters, and I don't fuss about it anymore. But that anger has pushed me to be a dynamite parent, right? Because I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to do this thing. You know what I'm saying? I've had anger about being, in workplaces, environments where I think people are not valuing my voice, right? And it was proper anger. And so I'm just like, you know what? I'm about to apply for 30 jobs today. I don't care. Or I'm about to go do this or whatever. Anger has jetted me into working on my book. If somebody diminishes something I'm doing, or minimizes it, or treats me negatively, or dismisses it, that anger that I might feel with that person doing that, I'll use it to go and do something else. But we have to get to a place where we are doing that very little of the time, and we're spending the majority of our time moving towards the beautiful things that we want to experience. But we can't get there if we're shying away from all of our emotions and pretending like they don't exist. Sweeping things under the rug does not fix or change or make them better or evolve us. They only make us more angry. And then it's going to be that one moment when you hear people say snapped, right? I was a prime candidate for snapped. Because I would go 0 to 60 and then nobody knew I was even angry. Nobody even knew I had a problem with the thing. And so many people are walking around doing that thing. You know what? If you got a problem, tell the people. It's better than being angry about it. What they going to do? Not talk to you? Whatever. So what? So many people in the world, whatever. You know what I mean? If you really love me and care about me, you're not going to stop talking to me for those kind of things. But we have to get to the place where we really know what to do with it and how to use it, and then how to move forward from allowing it to control us. Anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. And until next time, keep manifesting magic.